Hi everyone, I'm Donna Stelhorn, your practical astrologer, and today we are talking about the solar eclipse. It's on February 17. It's at 28 degrees of Aquarius. We're going to do a short overview and then we're going to go sign by sign. So we're having a new moon. It's a solar eclipse and it falls on Lunar New Year, which is the year of the fire horse. So having all of these three forces come together is not that unusual. The last time we had it was 2018. That was the year of the Earth Dog. That was our reminder to go out and build community and connect with friends. This one is a little bit unusual because it's going to be 3 solar eclipses in 3 years in a row that all fall on Lunar New Year. And so that's going to be 2026, 2027, and 2028. And so that is a lot of intense energy over the next 3 years. The last time this happened was in 1980, 81, and 82. That started with Metal Monkey. And Metal Monkey energy was very much about kind of an international, global financial party. So when we talk about fire horse, of course, we're talking about Chinese astrology, which is different than Western astrology, but there are some areas where they intersect. And one of the interesting things about Chinese astrology is that it is a calendar of energies. And so it gives us a theme for the year, but also can give us a theme for the month or the day or the hour. Whereas Western astrology is overlapping cycles, and so they don't necessarily follow the calendar. So when we look at the energy of fire horse, what we have is a horse on fire. And that is a horse that is running at full gallop and it's heading in a direction. It is either very, very excited or it's been spooked by something. So that means in 2026, for the whole year until we get to Fire Goat in February 2027, we're going to be doing this energy that says that if we have a goal, if we have something that we're going towards, we are getting there very, very quickly. We are galloping towards that. But if we don't have a goal, that means then we are running at full speed and we are guided by some other force, some external goals. And so we could easily run into a box canyon, we can run off a cliff, etc. So we want to make sure that we have goals. And by that I mean that it's important for you to know what you want versus what the world wants for you. When you're unsure about what you want, there is a lot of companies and governments and authorities out there who will tell you what is good for you. But you can decide also what you want. And with the fire horse energy and starting on this eclipse, you can make really great progress towards your goal. I think it's very interesting that a horse could be ridden for pleasure or a horse could be ridden into battle. And that's something that we're going to be talking a lot about this year because it's one of the only animals of the Chinese zodiac that we think of and connect with battle. And I mean, I suppose you could take a dog into battle and, Monty Python faced rabbits in battle. And if you know what I'm talking about, leave me a comment in the comment section. But there's energy here that says that diplomacy is necessary, strategy is necessary, and that we are heading towards something that could be a battle. Now, this is not going to happen right away. This is going to be something that we're going to talk a lot more about when Uranus goes into Gemini in April. Uranus in Gemini generally signals some sort of war. It happens about every 84 years, and Uranus in Gemini is a disruption in conversation or communication, and it also represents a disturbance in the neighborhood. And if we think of neighborhoods as different countries sitting next to each other, I think that's why Uranus tends to signal some sort of war. So but on this channel, we really like to focus on what you can do with this energy individually. And so one of the things I want to point out in this solar eclipse chart is normally I run this chart for my location, San Diego. And then you would need to run it for your location to see where the planets fall. But I think it's very interesting that this particular solar eclipse, when you run it for Washington, D.C., that this solar eclipse falls exactly on the ascendant that is one, very unusual, and two, not a good sign. So it really indicates that some sort of change or disturbance is happening. Now, on this channel, we like to focus on us as individuals and what we can do. We're not in charge of countries, and so we're in charge of companies or families or our department or things like that. And so that's what we focus on here, and that's what I want to talk about with you, is what kind of changes are going to happen in your life. And when we go sign by sign, we'll be talking specifically for your sign. But right now, let's talk about what an eclipse really is. So a solar eclipse is when the moon, this little guy here, gets to be in a position where it appears to us on Earth so large that it blots out the sun. So the moon represents what it is that we feel, what it is we need, and that longing that continues to push us forward. The sun represents our identity, how we describe ourselves to the world, how we live. And so when our emotions become so big and so overwhelming, they actually create a change in who we are. And that's what a solar eclipse is. It is a time when you end being a certain way and you start being a different way. So wherever the solar eclipse falls in the world, wherever it's visible, I should say, that area is weakened. And so that's an area sometimes that we get fires, floods, earthquakes, etc. This particular solar eclipse is visible in Antarctica. So if you are traveling to Antarctica, be safe. But we may see some changes in ice, or maybe something will break off and go into the ocean. I don't know that much about that stuff, but look for some news about Antarctica either 2 weeks before the eclipse or a few weeks after the eclipse. So let's take a look at the chart. And of course, here is our solar eclipse. It's at 28 degrees of Aquarius, and it is making a square to Uranus. So as though an eclipse in Aquarius wasn't enough of a signal of change, we get a square to Uranus that says, no, really, it's time to change. So the solar eclipse itself is very personal. It's about, as I said, our needs get into conflict with how we have defined ourselves, and so we must redefine who we are. Now, sometimes that can be done completely by ourselves. We wake up in the morning and say, I want to change, and that's the time that we then give up a habit, or we start doing something different, or we change jobs, we change relationships, we move, that sort of thing. With that square to Uranus, that indicates that there is an external force also that is requiring change, that is a catalyst of change, that is creating either that doorway or cutting off a direction that we were going, so we have to go a different direction. Another thing to point out here is that there is a counter parallel between Jupiter and Pluto. So when we look at the chart itself, here, of course, is Pluto, and here is Jupiter. And as we look at them, we would say they're not making an aspect, they're not talking to each other. But a counter parallel is an energy like an opposition. And that we can see is right here, where we see that Jupiter is actually at 22 north declination, and Pluto is at 22 south declination, and so they are making that counter parallel. The energy manifests as ambition, as a desire to make a huge change, not letting anything stop you. So there is the power to do something big in this chart. There's the power to make a change, make a complete shift in direction. And then I also wanted to point out Mars here. You can see Mars here at 19 degrees of Aquarius, barreling its way towards that eclipse point. So it's going to reach that eclipse degree on February 28th, and that is what we call an eclipse activation day. That is a day where a lot of forces are happening on that very sensitive point, and that means that some sort of big action can happen. Now, in your life, that might be the day that you actually quit your job or give notice or tell your partner that you're moving on. But in the world, that can be something too. It can be a very big news day. And so if you're out in the world, if you work in the public sector, if you're out and amongst people, just be aware of what's going on around you. You know, not everything happens everywhere all at once, and so it's likely you will be in a place that is just fine, but it is good to be very aware on that day. And by the way, if you want to know more about what's up for you in 2026, I do readings. There's a link in the description. I also have an illustrated newsletter, and that comes out once a week, and that's free, and there is a link to that in the description. All right, let's go sign by sign. Okay, Aries, I have changed this chart into a 0 Aries chart. And so these are predictions for Aries and Aries rising. And of course, we see the eclipse. And I've lost my pen. Hold on. There we go. We see the eclipse here up in your 11th house. That is going to be your point of change. So the 11th house is actually one of the things to think about is it's about the future. It's about your plans for the future. And now that Saturn and Neptune, we can see the pair right here at 0 degrees of Aries. Now that they are officially both in Aries and affecting your sign, that means that your plans that you've been working on, the blueprints that you've been drawing up for your life, those need to have some shifts, some changes, some adjustments, some alterations. So, and that's okay because, you know, with Aries, you're fine with trying things, you know, putting out a lot of action in different directions and seeing what works. So this eclipse says that something in the path of what you want has changed, and so you need to pivot. That might be that you were heading towards a career path, and now you're seeing something that's more interesting. You were considering a relationship, but maybe it's not working out, or there's somebody more interesting over on the other side of the room. Change could also be coming because of Uranus. Uranus is making a square from your house of money. So what could cause a pivot is based on financial. And that could be changing jobs because they offer you more money. Or this could be shifting some sort of action that you're going to take, whether it be with friends or something about your future, just because you don't have the resources or because the resources are coming from another place. So, but finances look like one of the catalysts for change. Other catalysts for change with that Uranus in the second house could be what you feel worthy for, what you feel like you can do, and also what is within your possession. Maybe you don't have all of the knowledge or the components or what's necessary to make something happen, and so you're pivoting so that you can find an easier way. Some of the other things this eclipse could change for you in your life is friendships, and that could mean that a friend is moving across country or friendship is breaking down. This can also affect groups that you're in, communities that you're a part of. Perhaps you are taking a leadership role. Perhaps you are stepping away from a group. If you're forming a group, that would be good energy for this. You might be disbanding a group. Basically, the eclipse just asks for change. And then finally, this is your area of technology. And so you may be making a pivot based on that Uranus to say, if I study this, then I'm going to make more money. Or perhaps you're offering some sort of tech services. Maybe you're moving away from doing so much technology. Maybe you're pulling away from doing so much screen time. So the energy here could be tech related. And because of that, it would be a good idea before we hit this eclipse to make sure that your computers are backed up, that your identity is all secured behind passwords or passkeys and security keys and all of that stuff. Now, when we look at your relationships, we are looking at how the ruler of your ascendant, which is Mars, interacts with Venus, which is the ruler of your descendant. And we can see Mars right here in Aquarius, and Venus is just moving away in the sign of Pisces. And so there's going to be a point where you're going to get some semi-sextile energy. That's in a few weeks. But for the most part, this is that the person that you're interested in or in a relationship with, they seem to be moving away in a different direction. And you have the ability to catch up because you're Aries and you can move very fast. But by the planets, they are saying that you're working on your stuff and they are moving in a different direction. That means that communication is a little bit more difficult, that you're going to have to be more deliberate about getting together, about setting up appointments or dates, and really trying to listen to each other. Of course, this is just for a 2-week period, and so therefore it may be that the two of you are just not in sync right now. Now, when it comes to your money, we are very interested in what Venus is doing, and Venus is in Pisces in your 12th house, and that is that money comes when you activate the more spiritual side. That is when you do the meditation, the journaling, the feng shui. It is about getting in tune with the energy of money, to understand it, to welcome it. And so being in tune with the energy of money can be anything from an affirmation to having an awareness of what people are buying or how the markets are doing or what is going to be popular in the future. So the idea here is to tap into your inner self, and the universe, and start to look at issues around money, limiting beliefs around money, and get those cleared, as well as doing things to attract financial prosperity energy first, and then the money comes. Okay, Taurus, I've changed the chart to a 0 Aries chart, and then I've turned the chart so we have Taurus on the ascendant, and so this is predictions for Taurus and Taurus rising. And so, of course, the first thing we want to talk about is this solar eclipse, and it is up in your house of career. And that means that you may be making decisions about your career now, and then the repercussions of those decisions could reverberate over the next 6 months. So you may decide now that you're not so happy with your job, and then over the next 6 months, you find a different job. Now, this is said while we are doing that square to Uranus, and this square to Uranus here is straddling this first house and second house, and that means that you could feel motivated to make a change based on finances, or you may be motivated to make a change based on your desire to take a leadership position or just to take charge of your life. So the idea here is that while Uranus is still in Taurus, you are leading the charge here. You are trying to find the life that makes you the happiest, of course. So here now is a time to be focused on whether your career is making you happy or your business is doing something that makes you happy, and making changes in that. And again, the eclipse time may be when the thing actually changes, and that is usually drawn by external forces. The company lays you off, or another company says, please come work for us. But if you were making the decision, you could just make the decision now, and then over the next 6 months, do the changes. Now, another thing I want to point out about this is, of course, it's quite possible that you're retired, that you're not working. Then the 10th house is going to be talking about your reputation. It can be talking about the reputation if you're working too. And so if you're in a very stable job, if you're not expecting to make a job move, it could be about your reputation. So reputation includes things like your status, that would be marital status, or your status as you're a citizen of a certain place. It can also be your identity, and that is your digital identity. So a shift in status generally is something that we are looking for. We are initiating. You go from married to single, or apartment living to in a house, or you go from living in one country to another country. But there can be also changes of status that you don't want to have happen. And that would be a breach of your financials, someone taking your identity or something like that. And because of that Uranus in that first house, you want to be very aware of that. So keep that in mind and make sure your passwords are strong and that your information is guarded and protected. Now, when it comes to relationships, we're very interested in what Venus, the ruler of your ascendant, is doing with both Pluto and Mars, and it is having a little conversation with Pluto, and that's a semisextile. So a semisextile is, as I've said before, like two siblings in the backseat of a car on a very long drive. You guys are either playing games together and you're having a good time, or you're poking each other and irritating each other. And so that is the energy that you're doing in relationships. So you may find that people are a little irritating right now, but that you really want to be with them. And so you call them up and you say, like, let's go to lunch, but then they pick a lunch place that is terrible, and, so forth. So it is this sort of push-pull energy. Generally, a semisextile is a need to take care of details rather than the big picture. It would be more important to kind of drill down and find out what's really irritating you and see if it's some sort of trigger or button that you have that you could disconnect once you realize what it is. Now, when it comes to your money, of course, we're interested in Mercury that rules your second house. And I will be talking as we get closer about Uranus going into your house of money. It's going to stay there for probably 7 years, and it is going to bring you lots of new opportunities, but it is also going to ask you to do things differently. But that is not going to start until April, and so we'll talk about it then. But right now we're going to focus on Mercury, and Mercury up here in Pisces is actually in a place where you may be thinking about the future. This is in an area of looking at something new. This is about looking at new investments, new sources of income, looking and saying, okay, what's different? Maybe it's not something new, but something you've never done. And so time to explore that. This is really good energy when it comes to investing and for making money through a business, as it is doing a trine to that Jupiter. And so that means that you could make more profits when it comes to investing or in your business. And you've got some positive energy also in money derived from career. So that could be getting some sort of raise or bonus in your current job, or changing jobs and getting more money that way. And so, of course, some of these things will be attached to the eclipse, and those have a 6-month timeline. And some of these things are just for that 2 weeks. And that could be that you start to investigate new ways of gaining more money through investing or business. Okay, so I've changed the chart to a 0 Aries chart and then turned the chart so Gemini is on the ascendant. So these are predictions for Gemini and Gemini rising. And what do we see but a solar eclipse right at the top of your chart? That is elevated energy, and that means that the changes that you're making are going to be seen by others, that there is a great awareness in what you're doing. So that might mean that you are changing something that is part of your job, part of your reputation, or it is something to do with your physical self. And so we see this solar eclipse almost in the 9th house. And going into the 10th house, that can be that maybe you're getting ready to graduate, maybe you're gaining credentials or some sort of authorization to do some sort of job. That can be getting a license. You might get an award or be asked to do some sort of writing or be interviewed somewhere. Now, if you are not working right now, this could be some sort of elevation in your reputation that people start talking about you in a very positive way, or that you are needing to be more seen because you get passed over for something. So you have to put yourself out there more. Now, of course, this solar eclipse is making that square to Uranus, and Uranus is very soon going to be in your own sign of Gemini. Now, I think you're going to really enjoy Uranus in Gemini because Gemini, you love new ideas, and Uranus is going to give you a plethora of new ideas. It's just going to be just a bounty of new ideas. So I think that you're going to enjoy it. However, while it's sitting on the ascendant, it is quite possible that you're going to change something about yourself physically. And so you might change your hair, you might change how you dress, you might change how you speak, you might change how you walk, you could change your physical size. So there is a lot of different changes that are happening. A lot of these changes could be happening just over this period of time as Uranus goes into Gemini, which is not going to be until April. And then some of these eclipse decisions that you're making, maybe about career and changes in your career, or changes in your title, or changes in how others see you, those could be reverberating over the next 6 months. And then something, though, could be happening just in the next 2 weeks, some sort of decision that you've made that you're going to travel to some place or investigate moving to a distant place, or that you are making some changes when it comes to a legal matter, so you can bring that legal matter to a close. This is also some energy around shifting of belief systems and maybe deciding that you're going to follow a faith or investigate a different religion. Now, when it comes to relationships, we have Mercury on one side, your sign ruler, and then we look at the descendant ruler, which is Jupiter, because we have Sagittarius here. And so here's Mercury up here in Pisces, making a lovely trine to that Jupiter. So we have a lot of harmony when it comes to relationships. With so many elevated planets in your chart, if you want to meet someone for a love relationship, this is the time to do it. Yes, I know. An eclipse relationship can be really topsy-turvy. It can be quite exciting. And so if you want an exciting relationship, then you can go out and meet them on the eclipse. But remember, this energy lasts for 2 weeks. So after the eclipse, you can go out and start meeting people if you want a relationship that's a little bit more steady. Now, this also says that if you're in a relationship, and all kinds of relationships, partnerships and friendships, there's more harmony right now. You're more of one mind, you're connecting better, and the communication is better. You have aligned values right now, so that you can solve problems together and deal with issues together. So the energy is quite good. Now, when it comes to your money, we always check the moon, and that is at the highest point in your chart. That means that what's needed right now is for you to be seen. And so one of the things you may be thinking about to yourself is how to market your business or your services. This may be that you want to shift your status in some way, and that can have a positive effect on your finances. And shifting status could mean that you are going from single to married, or maybe married to divorced. Perhaps you are going from employed to self-employed, or unemployed to employed. There's other shifts of identity. Could be that you are a person who was doing something for a company and maybe in some sort of service capacity, but now you're offering it also as, for private, consultations or things like that. Your reputation out there could mean that you are doing more marketing, so more people see you, that you start writing or posting videos or doing a podcast, that you are expanding your numbers, and that way more people see you and know who you are. So this is the key to your money this time. Okay, I have changed the chart to a 0 Aries chart, and then I've turned the chart so Cancer's on the ascendant. And so this is predictions for Cancer and Cancer rising. And so we find that the solar eclipse is in your 8th house. And 8th house is about power and control, and an eclipse is about change. And so there is a shift of power happening in your life. Now, power is the ability to determine when you want to do something and how you're going to do something, and that you don't have to check in with others. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait to be freed to do it. That is power. There's also power in making decisions that are based in curiosity, based in something other than fear. So if you are basing all of your decisions on fear, this is to prevent this from happening, or this is because this could happen. If you're basing it that way, you are then giving your power to what you're afraid of. But if you are saying to yourself, well, I wonder what would happen if I, explored new ways of traveling, explored new investments, met new people. If you just get curious about these things, you are now shifting into power. Now, additionally, this eclipse is in your area of resources from others. And so we do see a change in what you are receiving from others. Now, this can be a change in that you're not going to get so much from someone else. And that could be an institution, a bank, an individual, or that you're going to be getting more. You are getting the loan, or you're getting the grant, or something like that. And of course, which direction this goes often is about, did you do a grant application? If a person tells me they did not, then they're probably not getting a grant. So this energy, of course, is making a square to that Uranus. Uranus is in your area of groups and organizations, and so that might tie into the resources from others. So let's say you were looking for a job. This could be networking or connecting with an organization that then gives you a job. This can also be something like if you were doing investing, this is a connection to technology and how technology could help you make more money. Or if this is about a shift of power, then that square to Uranus is about how you're different amongst other people, that you are being your unique self, and rather than just following the crowd. So that external factor of the Uranus could be that catalyst that makes a change, but it's you truly making the change here. You're the one making the decision. Now, when it comes to your relationships, we're very interested in what the moon, your sign ruler, is doing with the descendant ruler, which is Saturn. These two are making an out-of-sign semi-sextile. Now, a semi-sextile, and I've talked about this before, is kind of like two kids in the back of the sedan on a very long car trip. So the two kids are either playing with each other and happy as clams, or they are poking at each other and irritating each other. And so this is that energy going back and forth. I've also described this as like you're on a hike and you have a rock in your shoe. You have to stop and take the rock out of your shoe, because that little rock, even though it's just a tiny little pebble, is going to be debilitating by the time you finish the hike. So the energy here is that small adjustments make all the difference. The two kids in the back seat could continue to squabble with each other, or one of them can say, let's just play a game. And, that starts then the fun. So the energy here is you can get bogged down in the details of the relationship. This person's doing this and it irritates me. And rather than pointing all that energy towards them, look back at yourself and say, how can I shift this? Why is this triggering me? Why does this push my button? And see if you can't disconnect that button. Now, the other thing that's really interesting about this is that if you're looking for love, what this could do is it could cause you to meet someone because the Saturn's at 0, brand new person, never met them before, but you meet them in circumstances where you weren't really ready to meet them. Like you meet them on the job and you're being professional, maybe they're the customer and you can't really say anything, or, you meet them and you're both, like very busy, and so you don't have time. So there could be something here. And so if you're looking for love, keep this in mind and be ready if some opportunity comes, because it's going to come at an odd time. Now, when it comes to your money, we look at the sun, and the sun is here in your area of resources from others. This is also income from business, investments, passive income sources, things like royalties, residuals, and yes, lottery, but lottery, we have to see your individual chart to see if you can win the lottery. So, and then this is a square to Uranus. And so this indicates that a change is needed. The Aquarius energy is a little bit more about diversification. And so looking at different ways that you can place your money or your resources or your assets so that when the market goes up and down, that you're okay. The Uranus indicates that, you might get some information from an outside source about some new types of investments. There's so many different types of investments these days, and businesses that you can start, etc. Now, because this is from the 11th house to the 8th house, there could be some tie from a regular job. And so there could be some sort of perk from your regular job that is very lucrative, but you need to take action about it. If this is a situation where you're retired, this 8th house does rule government checks, and so income from a passive source, and that would be like Social Security. This says there could be changes in Social Security that, if you work at it, could be beneficial for you, or perhaps there are some programs that you don't know about because of your status that you could avail yourself of. Okay, Leo, I have changed this chart to a 0 Aries chart, and then I've turned the chart so that Leo's on the ascendant, and so these are predictions for Leo and Leo rising. And the first thing that we see is that this eclipse falls in your house of relationships, partnerships, collaborations, and connections with others. And so that's always an indication that it's good to get out of the house and start to connect with people, or at least start connecting with people online. This is a time where there could be changes happening in relationships. Now, that can mean that you're meeting new people, and those people will become significant in your life. But it also can be that you need to have a couple of important conversations, maybe with people in your life, about maybe bringing a relationship to an end, or making a change in a relationship because the relationship is not sustainable as it is. Now, the other thing that this eclipse could bring, which is not related to relationships, is about balance. It could indicate that you are out of balance, that you are doing something so extreme on one side, and that could mean that you're forgetting something else, like you're working so much that you're not taking any leisure time, or that you have gotten into so much leisure time that you're not exercising, or, so there could be something here where everything is out of balance. This also could be that you're giving so much to others that you have forgotten what you wanted, that you are always making yourself so available to others that you don't have time for yourself. Now, the catalyst for change here is, of course, that Uranus, and that is sitting there right on that edge of the 10th house, 11th house. That can mean that one of the changes that could happen is something related to your job, your career, and that means a change like maybe them moving you to another location, or that you are changing jobs, and so there's a big learning curve, and that affects your relationships. This can also be, though, related to 11th house, because we're so close right now to that 11th house, and so that can be that a friend says something and you get inspired to do something different, or somebody makes a comment and you say, I didn't realize I was doing that. I'm going to make a change. Now, the other thing that this can do with an eclipse of this type is that it's not you going through a change at all. It's your partner. It is somebody else in your life who is very important, and that can be, like if you're taking care of your mom, maybe there's a shift with your mom. If there's a shift with your partner takes a job in Australia, and now the whole family's packing up. Like, it can be that the other person has the change, but then that change reverberates into your life. Now, I've already talked a lot about relationships, but of course, when we actually zero in on relationships for the chart, we always compare the ascendant ruler with the descendant ruler, ascendant ruler being the sun, which we were just mentioning. And then there's two descendant rulers in your chart because you have Aquarius on the 7th, and that is both both Uranus. As she boxes in Uranus, she should say Uranus, and Saturn. And so the interesting energy here, of course, we're talking about that square that somebody external in your life could force a change. The other aspect here is that out of sign semi-sextile, that surprising thing the other person does that irritates you, that you didn't realize they would do, or you didn't realize it would irritate you, or somebody just triggers you just slightly and you're surprised that you're having such a reaction to this. And it gives you an opportunity to explore something about yourself and about the relationship with that person. Now, remember, this doesn't have to be, deep, like love, marriage, relationships. This could be friendships. This could be business partnerships. This could be some sort of collaboration you're doing with someone. Every person who comes into your life comes through that 7th house. So this could be anyone you are having any sort of connection with. And when we look at your money, we look at Mercury because Mercury rules your 2nd house, and Mercury is in the 8th house of resources from others, investment income, business income, passive income sources, royalties, residuals. So really good placement. You are, of course, still doing that south node in the 2nd house. So one of the issues is you keep defaulting to old behavior, you keep defaulting to old patterns, and that's not necessarily that helpful. But with that, if we let go of that and we just look at that Mercury is in a place where there could be news or information about making more money, especially through investments or passive income sources. Now, passive income sources would also include money from the government if you are retired, so keeping that in mind. Now, this Mercury is making a lovely trine to Jupiter, but Jupiter is in the 12th house, and 12th house is about spiritual connections and doing things that are more magical or about affirmations or about self-healing. And so that would mean that more money comes when you work on yourself, when you work on your shadow side, when you work on your inner issues, or when you do things externally in the world, such as feng shui or journaling or lighting a candle. That is sources to put yourself in harmony with financial energy, and then you'll be able to see and understand the opportunities that are there and know whether to take them or when to take them. Okay, Virgo, I have changed this chart so it's a 0 Aries chart, and then I've turned the chart so Virgo is on the ascendant. So these are predictions for Virgo and Virgo rising. And the first thing we see is, oops, I need a pen. First thing we see is the eclipse below the horizon here, now in your 6th house, and that is your area of work, routines, and your health and well-being. And it's very interesting because Virgo rules this area in your chart anyway. So this eclipse is actually changing an area where you're very adept at change already. This is that area where you are making adjustments to make something better. And that's what this eclipse is suggesting. It is suggesting you go through your routines, how you get things done, how you take care of yourself, your health protocols, your work protocols, all of those things, and start to look at the different steps you take and see where you can tweak things, where you can make some adjustments. Now, of course, eclipses can bring bigger change, and then this could be centered around you taking some action about your job. This could indicate some sort of job change, or that you're staying in the same job, but now everything around you is changing. That would be new offices or new workmates, or you're on a new team, or there's a new computer system. So this is the area of health. And so it may be that the doctor is telling you that you need to make some changes in how you're taking care of yourself. This could be that you are gaining some information. Here is Uranus right here in the area of information right at the top of your chart. And that is causing you to make a change, so that you read something, you hear something, and that causes you to shift, finding a new way to take care of your physical body or a new way to do your job. So this Uranus also is, because it's so elevated in your chart, could mean that things that are going on externally in the world, or things that are going on with some authority in your life, because of the changes they're making, you are having to make some changes or adjustments. And so authorities in your life could be anyone from a parent, a grandparent, or somebody who's in charge of I don't know, your estate, to somebody who is an authority in your HOA, someone who is an authority in the community, or someone who is an authority in the government. So the idea here is that then the changes that they're making filtered down into your life. Now, the best way to use some of this eclipse energy is to make a lot of changes, to change things in your daily life as much as you possibly can, adjust the systems that you're doing, and that uses up the change energy, and then you have less change imposed on you. Now, the other interesting thing about this eclipse placement is it's so close to your 7th house that it's possible that nothing is changing in your life. It's changing in your partner's life. It's changing in somebody's life who's so significant in your life that that change then changes your life. Like your partner getting a new job, but their new job is in Europe, and so now you have to move. Or their new job is different hours, and so that changes the childcare schedule, or something like that. So it can be that the change that happens and affects your daily life is because your partner has a change in their life. Now, we see this energy kind of emphasized when we look at your relationships. So your relationships, we look at the planet Mercury because that's your sign ruler, and then the rulers of your descendant, which are both Neptune, here's our Neptune, and Jupiter. So that is some interesting energy. Let me point out Mercury here as well. So because there's no aspect going on between Mercury and Neptune, Neptune is at 0 degrees now. And so that is the energy is so brand new. It's so, we don't even know what it is. It hasn't emerged yet. It hasn't formed yet. It hasn't come into being yet. But there's no aspect going on here. So if this is a Neptune activation, it is that your partner has an idea, but they haven't given you a clue about it yet. Now, the other energy here is that you've got Mercury making a lovely trine to that Jupiter. That's really great energy. So that is that your partner does know what they want to change and you're happy about it. You are finding that this is something that your partner really needed. It's going to be good for the family. It's heading in a direction you wanted to go. And so you embrace the change and you say, all right, bring it on. Now, if you're looking for love, this is really interesting energy too, because this trine indicates that you could meet someone when you are doing something within the community. That is going to groups or organizations, going out with friends, or trying to expand friend groups by attending meetings. So that's something that you could consider if you want to get into a love relationship, is go find a friend. And then when we look at your money, we want to know what Venus is up to because you have Libra on the 2nd house. And so oops, I want that North Node too. Hold on, let me get it. So Venus and the North Node are sitting exactly together in your house of relationships, connections, partnerships, and collaborations. So when Venus is with the North Node, did I say Libra before? I meant Venus. Venus with the North Node exactly means that something's here that benefits your life path and you want to do it. It is something that it looks like it's fun or it's beautiful or it's interesting. It attracts you. You want to do this thing and it's in harmony with your life path. That's fantastic. Now, this comes through someone else. So that means that someone else has the idea or you can partner with someone to do this. But this is really good money energy for you because this thing that you want to do that is part of your life path that is connected to someone else actually could bring you money. So that's why this is such a good connection for you. Okay, Libra, I have changed this chart to a 0 Aries chart, and then I turned the chart so Libra's on the ascendant. So these are predictions for Libra and Libra rising. And here is the eclipse sitting in your 5th house. Now, the 5th house is about your kids. And of course, if you have kids, that means that they may be going through changes and shifts, and that could cause you to have to change parts of your life or your whole life. And so your kids are definitely a focus. If you're looking to get pregnant, then that is your focus, and that says that some sort of change is necessary. Perhaps you are exploring different protocols. Now it's time to pick one. Maybe you weren't thinking about exploring different options, but now it's time to think about that. But if you don't have kids, then, or even if you do, this also could be about creativity. So what you're putting out there in the world. So your art, your music, your acting. This is also about self-expression. And so what you do to express who you are, maybe through decorating or entertaining or gardening. And this is also, though, about stepping out of your comfort zone and taking a risk, just pushing that boundary a little bit. And this is about speculation. So, and that's where I wanted to talk a little bit more because of that tie in with Uranus in your area of resources, and it's bordering this area of education. So it may be that you get introduced to some new investment. That investment, maybe it's a brand new investment or just something you've never done before, and now you're feeling the eclipse in your area of risk taking, and so you're wanting to take a chance. And taking a chance is a way that we learn and grow. But of course, with an eclipse, you don't want to bet the farm because eclipse energies can bring such big changes into a person's life. So you really want to explore before you commit something huge to whatever venture it is. This is too unstable an energy to trust that you can just close your eyes and roll the dice. Now, the other things that this can bring is that there could be resources from others with that Uranus that then give you an opportunity to explore your creativity, or it helps your kids, or it is something where you could later speculate with that person, maybe in some sort of partnership. So you have some opportunities for expanding your comfort zone, or helping your kids. And so either of those could be good. But remember, eclipse energy, the eclipses the universe wants us to make a bigger change than we generally like to do. And this has that extra catalyst to make it happen. Now, when we look at your relationships, we want to know what Venus, the ruler of your ascendant, is doing with Mars, the ruler of your descendant. And right now, they are not really talking to each other. So here's Mars down here in Aquarius in your 5th house, and Venus is up here in your 6th house. And that means that your partner hasn't really caught up to where you are, that you maybe have thought of different things that you want to do, like maybe you want to go to Spain and you are already planning the trip and you're starting to pack, and your partner's not quite on board with going yet. Or you want to make some other change, like moving or changing jobs. And so you're moving ahead and your partner is still back there, before the eclipse, etc. And so it's going to take more deliberate communication. You may have to stop and turn and say, okay, this is where I'm heading. This is what I'm doing. Because when there's no aspect, there's no easy way to get this going. You have to initiate it. You have to stop and say, all right, I've got to sit my partner down, and it's going to be possible that it's not clear. You don't really understand each other at first because their head is somewhere else. But as you talk about it, then you can finally get a meeting of the minds. Now, when it comes to your money, we look at the ruler of your 2nd house, or in your case, 2 rulers, and that is Mars and Pluto. Now, I'm putting them in one box, but they're too far from each other right now to be talking to each other, but they had spent a lot of time talking to each other, being very connected. And this was a time where you were probably very focused on a goal, and now perhaps you are getting a little distracted by other things, and you're thinking, oh, I was so focused before. How can I get back to that? Well, you can, because both of these are still in the sign of Aquarius, and so there is that hidden connection. It is necessary with that Mars in Aquarius to refocus yourself, because there are a lot of distractions you can feel with that. Now, this is in your area, as we talked about already, of speculation and expanding your comfort zone, of taking small risks. So think of the things for money that would feel a little bit risky. Maybe putting yourself on camera, maybe launching a new product, maybe trying some speculative investment. And again, with this volatile energy, don't bet the farm. But just stepping a little bit out of your comfort zone then expands that circle, and then you're able to do more and more. So this particular placement says to focus on the things that are going to be creative and fun, and those things are going to bring you the most money. Okay, Scorpio, I have taken a 0 Aries chart here, and I have turned it so Scorpio is on the ascendant, and so these are predictions for Scorpio and Scorpio rising. And we see the, whoops, I lost my pen. We see the solar eclipse down here in your 4th house. It's about to go into the 5th house, so there's a lot of energy here about change, and it's related to home, family, but also could be related to your children or, things that you're creating. And most of this is going to be centered around home and family. And that is everything from how you're getting along with your family, the size of the family, like is somebody new coming in? Is somebody going out? Are you changing something about the home itself? If you're in real estate, there could be changes there around your how you're working or who you're working with. This could be renovating a house, building a house. This could be changing something about the house where you're welcoming somebody in, maybe you have a rental property or something like that. So looking at changes, and then of course the catalyst of change. Okay, that was, let me try that again. And then our catalyst for change here, Uranus in the area of other people, that is connections with others, could be the reason you make a change. Somebody knocks on your door and wants to buy your house. The landlord says you can rent the place, or that you find a partner who wants to do some sort of investing with you. You find the person who's going to do the renovations of your house, or somebody says they want to move in. Somebody says they want to move out. All of these things could initiate with someone else. And that can make you feel like you're not in control of what's going on at home. There's such a desire right now with Pluto in your 4th house here of a desire for control over your domain. But understand that if you make changes, then that uses up the energy, and then there's less external change. I think the reason that we're doing that square to Uranus is so many people don't want to change, and you are a fixed sign, and fixed signs do tend to wait until they absolutely have to make a change. So this would say make the change sooner than you want to, and then that uses up the energy. Now, when it comes to relationships, we're very interested in the 2 rulers of your ascendant, which are Pluto and Mars. These guys are right here. And how they are interacting with the planet that rules your descendant, right here, and that would be Venus. And you've got one aspect, and that is that Venus is making a little semi-sextile to that Pluto. Now, I've talked about semi-sextiles before. That's the rock in your shoe when you're on a hike. You have to stop and deal with that small little pebble. Otherwise, that rock is just going to dig into your foot until you cannot walk at all. So this is about dealing with the small things, dealing with the details. And these are going to be things that feel like you shouldn't have to deal with them. Like, how did that rock get in your shoe in the first place, right? So this idea is, you don't want to stop and take care of this detail. You don't want to stop and say what you have to say to this person a different way because they're misunderstanding what you're saying, or they're taking offense to it or something like that. But if you stop and deal with it now, then you don't have the debilitating energy later. So that's why it's necessary right now to take care of the little details, to deal with those things as they come up, and that will make all the difference in your relationships. This also indicates that if you're looking to meet someone new, the person you're noticing is the person who's kind of irritating, the person who is standing out a little bit to you. And so that thing that you think is so quirky and interesting might be the thing that irritates you later. Or something that they do that kind of catches you off guard is the thing that's piquing your interest. Now, when it comes to your money, that we look at the second house and we go find Jupiter, which is ruling your second house. And Jupiter is way up here in your ninth house. And it's away from the big clump of planets. And it's like standing out in the crowd. It's like doing something different than the crowd. And so this, of course, is in your area of education and knowledge. And so this is maybe to start to look at a contrarian sort of investing idea, or when it comes to business, like doing things differently than other people are doing. I know right now in YouTube, they're talking a lot about authenticity and how that's the trend, etc. But there was some point where someone said, I don't want to do all the B-roll. I don't want to do all the editing. And so they just did things a different way. And then that turned out to be then the way to do it. So this is that kind of thing when you're looking at your money is what's a different way of doing things? What's a different way than the crowd is doing things? So doing that helps you stand out in the crowd and brings the financial opportunities. Okay, Sagittarius, what I've done is I have changed this to a 0 Aries chart, and then I turn the chart so Sagittarius is on the ascendant. So this is predictions for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. And here is the eclipse right at the base of the chart. This is the foundation. And so, you are already a sign that can deal with change. You like a little bit of adventure. You like things that are going to be a little bit exciting. But this is standing on the volcano. This is standing on the earthquake. There is a change happening in your life. It's starting by you saying, I want something different. There is a new idea that is bubbling up that is going to make the shift. And so this can be that you're just going along and a thought, an impulse, an idea you never considered pops into your head. This is something to explore. Or there is a little germ of an idea that is now starting to sprout and vines are going everywhere. This idea that is going to change your mind about something. And it could be something as basic as how you look at the world. Maybe you've been looking at the world from a fear-based standpoint, and now you're going to look at the world and be curious about it and say, this could be just some big game that we're playing, a big video game. And so what if I treated it that way? Or perhaps you take a more spiritual route and say that, you have a path, you have a mission, you have something that you're working towards. And so you become this more spiritually aligned being just because this little idea popped into your head. So that sort of change is possible. Now, the other things, of course, that this eclipse could bring is a change that is initiated through siblings. So one of your siblings says something and that changes your life. They say something like they're moving in or they're getting married or something. It could be that your neighborhood is changing. Something about what's going on in your community is changing. And that's giving you the idea that you either need to take a stand or you need to not be there. Or that this might be some sort of contract or paperwork comes across your desk, and that is going to be a big change for you. Now, we do see that Uranus here is that square from your 6th house, and it's very close to that descendant, so that can be a change initiated by others, but also a change at your job makes a big change in you. So something changes at your job and then you get a new idea. Okay, I don't want to work for these people anymore, or I want to take that higher position. The idea comes and then the earthquake under your feet, you make a change. The couple other things that this could be, by the way, is there could be a change of how you get around. That means there could be some sort of shift when it comes to your vehicle, like your vehicle stops working, or it's just time to get a new vehicle, or you get pulled over. So that you have to watch for. You may want to also be thinking about how you're getting goods. So that would be logistics, especially if you're in the delivery business, and that could really affect your business. Maybe you want to do more hours or less hours, but it's also possible that maybe something that was supposed to be delivered is not going to be delivered, and therefore you have to pivot and make some changes. Now, this thing is so close to the very bottom of your chart, and that is a chart that that is a point that is about endings. And so this is really a good time to think about what you want to end, what you want to finish up, what you want to let go of. So, and then the Uranus square would be that you suddenly do it. You suddenly say, I'm not going to live here anymore. Or, I'm not going to do this job anymore. Or I'm not going to think these things anymore. I'm going to break this habit. Now, when it comes to relationships, we want to know what Jupiter, the ruler of your sign, is doing with the ruler of the descendant. So this is your descendant, and that would be Mercury. And it's making a beautiful trine. You have more harmony in your relationships right now than you've had in a while. And this means that you can state, okay, there's an earthquake under my feet and I'm going to make a big change. And you can get people on board with you. That means that you can communicate well with your partner, that you can find friends to support you. You can find, actually, this is Jupiter's in your area of support from others. So you can find people to help you out, to give you the information you need or a place to stay or whatever it is. Based on the changes that you're making, you can get help when you connect with others. So your relationship energy here is quite good. Now, it's also good for meeting someone new for a love relationship. With this placement, it may be somebody who you know already through the family or someone that, like your sister knows them or your mom knows them. This also could be that this is someone that you grew up with and they are coming back into your life. Now, when it comes to your money, of course, the big news about the ruler of your second house is that it's sitting there with Neptune at 0 degrees. So a 0 degrees is like the egg of potentiality. It's that all things are possible. And that's wonderful. That means that you have so many options right now. The challenge with that is it's like being in the biggest donut shop in the entire world. And so you have every kind of donut that you can possibly think of, the plain ones, the one with pink sprinkles, the one that has bacon on it, like all of the donuts are there. But how do you decide? How do you pick one? And that's the issue that you may be having with this Saturn Neptune, that you have all of these different options for investments, business income, passive income, all of these different things, and you can't decide. So that means that you need to go within and do that Neptune and look at the vision of what you want your future days to be like, what you want your legacy to be, what kind of people do you want to interact with and how do you want to interact with them? Do you want to interact more with technology than with people? Do you want to interact with children or adults? Figuring out those sort of pieces will then tell you more about what that source of money is. Now, this is, of course, a pretty big deal because Saturn and Neptune are not at 0 very often. Saturn's there once every 2.5 years. And Neptune, I think it's at least 9 years. It's probably more than that. It might be closer to 14. Anyway, it's really long. And so that means that this is a rare opportunity for you to really explore, be in that donut shop, look at every single donut and say, is this good? Don't ignore this time because very soon Saturn's going to be at 1 degrees and it's going to be time to start. Okay, Capricorn, I've taken the chart and I've made it a 0 Aries chart, and then I turned the chart so that Capricorn's on the ascendant. And so these are predictions for Capricorn and Capricorn rising. And this puts this eclipse in your area of money. And so that is that a change is needed in your finances. And that can be a change of the source of the finances, how you handle the finances, how the money is going out. It is also about a change of your attitude about the finances, about shifting that energy so that you have the power, so you have control over it, rather than feeling like it's some mysterious force and that other people can do it, but you can't. So this could indicate there is a major change in your finances happening over the next 6 months, that a new job opportunity is coming in or your business can take off. But we do see this square to Uranus that is the catalyst of change, and it is straddling the 5th house. That's about, self-expression and creativity and looking at, the enjoyable activities of life. What could be fun? When it comes to starting a business, that's a really important thing. There has to be some aspects that are fun, some aspects that you want to do, even if you weren't paid, because otherwise the business becomes a drudgery. And then this Uranus is very close to the 6th house, and the 6th house is about your work and your routines and your processes. How do you get things done? So overall, what this is saying is your financial situation has to change, and you have the power to change it. And it may start with your sense of deserving, your attitudes about money, your upbringing about money, and how that needs to shift so that you are your own person and not just living under the shadow of other people's teachings. And then the catalyst here is some opportunities, maybe creative opportunities, maybe work opportunities that are coming in, and they're all going to feel slightly out of your comfort zone. They're certainly not fitting into your schedule, and so change has to be made so that you can allow the opportunities in and then allow the money in. Now, when it comes to relationships, we're very interested in what Saturn, the ruler of your ascendant or your sun sign, is doing with the descendant ruler, and that would be the moon. So, and when we look at these two, we get a little out of sign semi-sextile. So an out of sign semi-sextile is like a little bit of irritation in your life that's just enough. It comes out of nowhere. It's a little bit of a surprise irritation, like someone you really get along with, they started to do a little habit that really starts to bug you. Like you say, why do they keep doing that thing? Or for some reason, the thing they haven't changed, but now it just bugs you. And so I often talk about a semi-sextile as a little rock in your shoe. And so if you continue on the hike with this rock in your shoe, after going a mile or two, you're not going to be able to walk. You must stop and take the rock out of your shoe. And with it being out of sign, it's kind of like the rock got into your sock. So you take off the shoe, it's not there. You put the shoe back on, you still feel the rock, and you have to go, what is going on here? So that's where you're going to have to dig a little bit to find out why this is irritating you, what your partner's doing that, and this, when I say partner, it could be love relationship, business partnership, friendship, anybody you're interacting with on a regular basis, but they are irritating you, and you need to dig and find why, because there's something here that needs to be unraveled in you, not them. This is about you and why you're getting this trigger or button pushed. And when you disconnect that, when you find what it is and you cut that little wire, things get so much better. But this is an opportunity to explore that. And now we already talked a lot about your money, but there was one more point I wanted to make, and that's starting with, of course, that there are two rulers to your house of money. Now, first of all, you can see your house of money is chock full of planets, and Pluto will be there for the next 20 years. So you have a lot of time to work with the power that Pluto brings, which is fantastic. But the rulers of your money house are both the Saturn and the Uranus. Now, we talked a lot, let me grab Uranus here. We talked a lot about Uranus already because it's making that square to the solar eclipse. But let's talk about Saturn being at 0 degrees. And you know what? Let me clean this up a little bit. And I'm just going to grab these two because it's still sitting with Neptune at 0 degrees. So the Saturn at 0 degrees says you have more ideas for money-making opportunities than you've ever had. They're coming at you from all different directions. And here's the rub. They all sound hard or outside your comfort zone or like you don't really want to bother to do them. But these are viable options, and it's necessary for you to stop and actually envision yourself trying to do this thing. And as you do, then you can see whether it's going to work for you. So that is to stop for a second, and like the idea comes to you and you stop for a second and you say to yourself, okay, here's me doing that on a daily basis. What is working? What could change? How would I want to change it so it did work for me? And start to see how that would work, and then go back in your mind and find how you would get that started. if you have these ideas come to you and you just say, I don't have time to even think about that, the idea then goes and you miss it entirely. This time, while both Saturn and Neptune are at 0 degrees, is a finite time. You don't want to miss this opportunity. So if you can do nothing else, at least stop and write down the idea, because then you can explore it later. But if you don't, it's going to be lost, and that would be a pity. Okay, Aquarius, I have taken a 0 Aries chart and I've turned the chart so Aquarius is on the ascendant. So these are predictions for Aquarius and Aquarius rising. And of course, this is your solar eclipse. So, and such a big deal it is, you know, falling on that fire horse time. So this is such a powerful time of change for you. And you already are change itself. Aquarius is about change, so you embody change. You're good at change. You are the one who are teaching the rest of us how to change, but you're still a fixed sign. So while you're teaching the rest of us to change, you may be sometimes a little slow on changing yourself. And so here comes the eclipse. And so it is suggesting that it's time for a change. Again, because you've already changed lots. And so the eclipse is in your first house. That is your physical self, your energy, your leadership roles, and the action that you're taking. So this can be that you're changing something about yourself physically. That means could change your hairstyle, you know, how you dress, your physical size, how much you work out. This could be a change where you are changing how you're interacting with others, how you're presenting yourself, you know, maybe going from being introverted to extroverted, and you're just trying it out, you know, to see how it's going. Maybe interacting with new groups of people as well. This also could be that you are shifting into some sort of leadership role. And then it can be something very individual where you say, I'm going to be in charge of my life. I'm going to lead my life and move forward. Or that you are opting for some leadership role at work or in a group or organization. But mostly this says your life is going to change over this next 6 months. And the more change you do, then the less that change is imposed on you. And when we look at that catalyst for change coming from the outside, we see that the Uranus is in the 4th house and almost in the 5th house. So that is change from family members or a change that starts and is connected to your children. So that is that maybe somebody in your household says it's time to move, and that means you're moving with them. Or that something in the house breaks, and so that means a change in what you're doing, and you know that you can't use the kitchen anymore. Maybe one of your kids makes a decision that they're going to move cross country and you decide to go with them, or the kid decides they are moving into your house, and so you are dealing with that. So it can be that the change comes from somewhere in your family, or this is also about creative projects, or if you work in the real estate industry, changes in the industry could affect you. So, but mostly if you will make changes, if you do something different, then you use up that change energy and you get to dictate what the change is. Now, when it comes to relationships, we are looking at the ruler of your ascendant. And so you actually have 2 rulers. That is Uranus and Saturn. So, and I'm going to put Saturn with Neptune because these 2 are Siamese twins right now. And we also want to see what's going on with the sun. That's the ruler of your descendant. So how these 2 planets, Uranus and Saturn, are interacting with the sun. So the sun is making a square, of course, to Uranus. And that means that other people could be the source of change for you. Other people are coming into your life. They're suggesting things. They're saying what they're doing. They're telling you what to do. And all of these things could facilitate a change. But it also says that when it comes to relationships, there could be a conflict because of the change they're making. They're making a change, and you might say, that's not a good change for you. And so you may have to hash these things out and talk it through. The other aspect that you're doing is an out-of-sign semi-sextile with Saturn. And so that depends on which kind of tack you're going to take, because an out-of-sign semi-sextile is like the little rock in your shoe. It is a little point of irritation, a little detail. And if you deal with that detail, then things get much better. And so you can shift something that could look like it's going to be World War III to something that's just a little rock in your shoe. So that's like, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. I don't know how many more cliches I could say in one bit, but I think I've got them all now. So the interesting part about this is that semi-sextile coming from a 0-degree Saturn could be something that you didn't expect was going to irritate you. It's caught your notice though. And so don't go right to that square to Uranus. Don't go to how dare they do that, but say, oh, isn't it interesting that I am now irritated by that thing that they're doing? And that will give you insight into yourself. It'll help you with the relationship. It'll help you find some harmony when it comes to connecting more deeply with this person. Now, if you are looking for love, the energy here is like kind of like magnetic, like two people come together who may not be completely compatible because we do have that out of sign semi-sextile, but that the two of you come together with such force that you can't think about anybody else, you can't sleep, you can't eat, that sort of energy. Now, that is not necessarily stable energy, and you'll have to work to stabilize the relationship. Otherwise, the excitement that brought you together will be the excitement that pulls you apart. And you have a really interesting money chart, and that is, we look at the two rulers of your money. First is Neptune, which is at 0 degrees with Saturn, which is the co-ruler of your own sign. And so money and you are sitting together. And so that means you are more of a money magnet right now. Means you can bring in opportunities. People are going to offer you more. You can ask for more and get it. So those are some of the things you want to consider. Now you do have, and I got so much drawing on here, you have Venus and Mercury in your house of money during this time. Those two are going to cause you to spend. So this shows making more money, but potentially spending more money. So that can be a little bit of a problem. So more money coming in, but more money going out. The other significator of your money is Jupiter. And Jupiter is making a lovely trine to Mercury in that house of money. So that can mean that through your work, where Jupiter is, money comes to you. That could mean extra hours at your job, a better pay raise, or some sort of raise from your job, or that you are going from unemployed to having a job. Or it's also about how you're doing your daily routine and streamlining some things so that you are able to do 40 hours of work in 20 hours. And so therefore you are basically raising your rate. So you've got some really good energy here, but as I said, you could end up spending some of the extra money, so you want to keep an eye on that. Okay, Pisces, I have taken the chart, I've turned it into a 0 Aries chart, and then I turned the chart so Pisces is on the ascendant. So these are predictions for Pisces and Pisces rising. And so here is the eclipse. It is right by the ascendant. And so it's just in the 12th house. It's right behind you. And that's a really interesting placement I was about to explain something, but it's really long and rather complicated, so I won't go there. I will just say this is actually a really powerful placement in the chart. A lot of times people look at the 12th house and they say that it's hidden. Yes, it's hidden mostly from you. As I said, the eclipse energy is right back here for you. But for the rest of the world, it is extremely noticeable because it's on the horizon. So it's the sun and moon are rising in your chart. That's so noticeable. Like, suddenly we go from darkness to light. And of course, we can't see the moon because the brightness of the sun until the moon gets right there for the eclipse. And then we can only see the moon. So super, super powerful energy for you. And this is how you connect to the universe and to your guides, your angels, right now, they are helping you. They are giving you messages and connecting with you to help guide you through whatever it is you want to do. Now, this may be something that, that you can hear and touch and feel, or this may just be that little bit of a like, oh, today I want to go do this. But that's different than you've done on previous days. And so that means something. That's that kind of connection that can be subtle. It can just be out of the blue. You might have a dream. You might have, somebody sends you a video and you say, that video changed my life. This shift is something that starts inside. There's something that is brewing inside that says, I want to do something different. And that's what this eclipse is about. Now, this eclipse also signals some sort of ending, because if we look at this, this is the new moon right before your own new moon. So therefore, this is the end of your 12-month lunar cycle. And it ends on an eclipse. So that means you need to think about what you can finish, what you can let go of, what you can discard. And this could be physical things. It could be a relationship that you're letting go of, a job you're letting go of, a habit. That would be ideal with this chart, a habit or some sort of addiction to let go of. But letting go of something then leaves space for something new. Now, the catalyst for change here comes right with that Uranus in your area of thinking and ideas. So again, I'm seeing this as there's a spark, an idea that pops into your head, and that's the change that then you run towards, and that makes such a big difference in your life. But this is also at the base of your chart, again, in an area where that usually signifies endings, as well as almost in your area of home and family, that fourth house. That is that there's somebody in the family, maybe a cousin, a sibling, or somebody you live with, who says something like, I'm moving across the country and you're coming with me, or I'm moving into your house, or something like that. And that makes a big change in your life. Now, when it comes to relationships, we want to look at the two rulers of your sign. And that is, you are ruled both by Neptune here, so as well as Jupiter. And we want to see what these two planets are doing in relation to the ruler of your descendant. That would be Mercury. Mercury is not having any sort of conversation with Neptune, but it's making a beautiful trine to Jupiter. And that means that you have opportunities with your relationships, all kinds of relationships, love relationships, partnerships, friendships, to have more harmony, to have deeper, more connected connections with that person, as well as meeting new people. This is really good energy for finding someone and just starting a conversation and finding that you really click, finding someone that you feel really comfortable with, that you're in sync with right from the get-go. This is a great time for you to go explore and find new friendships or business connections, to find people to collaborate with because of this harmonious energy. So this would be a really good thing to focus on, especially while Mercury's in your own sign. You can find people who are like-minded, who understand you, who you have a connection with. Now, you have a couple of things going on with your house of money. And the first, of course, we're going to be talking about for years to come, and that is that now Saturn and Neptune are there. They're both at 0. Now, that's temporary, that the fact that they're both at 0 degrees. So that is about making a blueprint, making a detailed plan about what it is you want to achieve. Because Neptune is the vision and Saturn is the how to do something, how to build something. We put these together and we get blueprints. That in your area of money says it's time to really think about what it is that you want and start to consider how you're going to get there. Now, these two are at 0 right now, so that means you have infinite possibilities. The 0 energy is like the egg of potentiality. Anything could be created from this egg. So therefore, that means that you have endless financial opportunities right now. But because you have so many opportunities, it can feel like you don't know what to pick. Where do you start? What do you do? So that's where you have to get into these ideas. You have to stop and say, what is this idea? And start to visualize how you got there, how this whole thing got started, how you're doing it on a daily basis. And that might be anything from running a business, or that you have some passive income, or you've, gotten involved in real estate. Both think about what it is, the success part, but also how did you start? How did you get going on it? And that, when you have that vision, the blueprints are formed, they're in your hand, and you'll be able to take action. These two planets, Saturn's not going to be at zero very long, so they're going to stay together for a while, but not forever. And so that is, you want to take advantage of all of these ideas now and see and try to flesh them out as fast as you can. But usually when we are looking at a house of money, we want to know what the ruler of that house is doing. And in that case, of course, it is Mars. And Mars is sitting in your 12th house. And that's the house of accessing money through spirituality. That is by doing meditation, affirmations, magic, feng shui, lighting candles, things like that, to put your energy in harmony with money opportunity energy. So it is also about going within and looking at your shadow self, looking at the issues or addictions or other things that hold you back from making and accumulating money. So this is where you're doing the inner work, and that then leads to the money. I know oftentimes we're also focused on doing the marketing or being out there and meeting the people, but doing the inner work is quite important. And right now it is key for you for making more money. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to know more about what's ahead for you in 2026, I do readings. There's a link in the description. There is also links to my classes. I have a lot of classes coming up. And please leave me a comment if you like this video. Leave me a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.